Look, if you're over 60 and you think flying today is just like it was 15 or 20 years ago, you are setting yourself up for a miserable and potentially dangerous experience. The airlines aren't telling you this. In fact, their marketing relies on you not knowing it. But the reality is that once you hit that milestone birthday, stepping onto a commercial airliner changes from a simple commute into a genuine physical stress test. We often chalk up our post-flight exhaustion just to getting older. But there are specific physiological hardships your body faces at 35,000 feet that get significantly more intense after 6 decades of life. Today, we are cutting through the noise to give you the essential, unvarnished truths about flying as a senior traveler that nobody else is warning you about. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of protecting yourself up there, if you appreciate honest, no-nonsense travel advice that actually looks out for your well-being, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It really helps get this information out to other folks who need to hear it, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to join our community of savvy travelers. Let's start with the most critical, silent threat that gets ignored way too often, and that's what is happening inside your veins while you're squeezed into that economy seat. You've probably heard the term DVT, or deep vein thrombosis, thrown around. It sounds like scary medical jargon, but here's the plain English version. It's a blood clot forming deep in your body, usually in your legs, because you aren't moving enough. When you're 35, it's a minor concern on a long flight. When you are over 60, the risk calculus changes completely. As we age, our circulation naturally slows down a bit. Our vein walls aren't quite as elastic as they used to be. When you combine that natural aging process with the environment of an airplane cabin, where the pressure is lower, and you are forced to sit immobile in a cramped seat with your knees bent for 4, 5, or 10 hours, you are creating the perfect storm for a clot. The terrifying part isn't just the leg pain. It's the risk that part of that clot breaks off and travels to your lungs, which is called a pulmonary embolism. That can be fatal incredibly quickly. Yet, I guarantee you, nobody at the gate is handing you a pamphlet about this before you board. So, you have to take matters into your own hands. First, you absolutely need to invest in medical-grade compression socks for any flight over 3 hours. I'm not talking about just regular tight socks. These need to be graduated compression socks, which are tighter at the ankle and loosen slightly as they go up the calf. This design physically helps pump blood back up your legs against gravity. Put them on before you even get to the airport so your legs are supported during all that standing in security lines too. Second, and this is non-negotiable, you have to treat your seat like a temporary holding cell that you must break out of at least every 90 minutes. I don't care if the seatbelt sign has been off for hours. You need to unbuckle, get up, and walk the aisle. Walk to the bathroom even if you don't need to go. If you're stuck in a middle or window seat and the person next to you is asleep, you have to wake them up and ask to get out. Do not be polite at the expense of your health. Your vascular health is way more important than their 20-minute nap. If turbulence keeps you seated, you must do seated exercises. Do calf raises right there in your seat. Lift your heels high, then drop them and lift your toes high. Do that 20 times every hour to engage those leg muscles and act as a manual pump for your blood. This leads us directly into another major factor that compounds these physical risks, something that hits older travelers much harder than their younger counterparts: the cabin environment itself. We often joke about airplane air being dry and wrecking our skin, but for those of us over 60, it goes way beyond needing extra moisturizer. Aircraft cabins at cruising altitude have extremely low humidity. We're talking maybe 10% to 20%, which is drier than some deserts. Here is the kicker. As we age, our body's natural thirst mechanism actually diminishes. You don't feel as thirsty as you used to, even when your body needs water. This means many folks over 60 are already slightly dehydrated before they even step on the plane. add that Boundary cabin air-sucking moisture right out of your pores and lungs, and your blood actually thickens. Thick blood clots faster. See how this all connects back to the DVT risk? Furthermore, significant dehydration makes jet lag 10 times worse, increases confusion and fatigue, and can mess with blood pressure medications. The fix here seems obvious, but I see people doing it wrong on almost every flight. Do not rely on that tiny, thimble-sized plastic cup of water the flight attendant hands you every 2 hours. It's useless. You need a tactical hydration strategy. You must buy the biggest bottle of water you can find after you clear security. Your goal should be to finish at least 12 ounces before wheels up. During the flight, aim to drink roughly 8 ounces of water for every single hour you're in the air. And here's the hard truth that nobody wants to hear on vacation. You really need to skip the alcohol and the coffee while on board. Both are diuretics, which means they signal your kidneys to flush water out of your system, dehydrating you even faster. I know a glass of wine takes the edge off flight anxiety, and coffee helps with the early morning departure, but at 35,000 feet, they are actively working against your body's ability to handle the stress of flight. Save the celebratory drink for when you have landed and rehydrated on the ground. Now, let's shift gears slightly from the purely physical toll to something that causes massive amounts of anxiety before you even get on the plane: managing your essential medications through the security gauntlet. This is an area where vague TSA guidelines and internet rumors cause so many older travelers to panic, leading them to pack their meds incorrectly or, worse, leave things behind because they are afraid they won't be allowed through. There is a massive misconception that your liquid medications are subject to the same strict 311 liquids rule as your shampoo and toothpaste. That's simply not true, and knowing the actual rules can save you from a stressful confrontation with a TSA agent. Medical liquids, gels, and aerosols are categorized as medically necessary items. This means you are allowed to carry them in containers larger than 3.4 ounces, and they do not need to fit in that tiny quart-sized zip-top bag. This includes everything from insulin and liquid cough suppressants to saline solutions for your eyes. However, the catch is that you must declare them at the security checkpoint. Don't bury them in the bottom of your carry-on. Put them in a separate clear bag and tell the officer right away, "I have medically necessary liquids." They will likely perform a quick additional screening on the bottle, but they cannot take it away from you. Third, and this is a mistake I see all the time, never, ever put your daily medications in your checked luggage. We've all seen the news lately. Lost luggage rates are skyrocketing, and bags can be delayed for days. If you're over 60, chances are your medication isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a must-have to keep your heart rate steady, your blood pressure down, or your blood sugar levels regulated. Always keep a minimum of a 7-day supply of all medications in your personal item, the bag that stays under the seat in front of you. That way, even if the overhead bins get full and they force you to gate-check your carry-on suitcase, you still have your life-sustaining meds within arm's reach. Speaking of things within arm's reach, let's talk about the physical layout of the airport itself. Modern airports are being designed as massive shopping malls with gates attached, and the walking distances are getting longer every year. For a 25-year-old, a mile-long trek from Terminal A to Terminal C is a bit of a workout. For someone over 60, especially if you have any degree of arthritis or respiratory issues, it's an unnecessary physical drain that leaves you exhausted before you even board. There is a strange stigma around asking for help, but I want to break that right now. If you have even the slightest doubt about your ability to hike those distances while carrying a heavy bag, you must request wheelchair assistance or a cart ride when you book your ticket. It is a free service provided by the airlines, and there is no age limit or disability requirement to use it. If you need it, use it. Not only does it save your energy for the actual trip, but it often gets you through a dedicated security line and ensures you are at the gate on time without the stress of rushing. Remember, your vacation starts the moment you leave your house, not when you land. Why start it with a heart-pounding sprint through a terminal? If you're finding these tips helpful, and they're making you feel more confident about your next trip, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the one thing about flying that stresses you out the most lately? We're all in this together, and your experiences help everyone else in this community. And while you're down there, make sure you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the final part of this guide. Now, let's address something that almost no one talks about because it's a bit uncomfortable: the impact of altitude on your digestive system. It's a scientific fact called Boyle's Law. As the atmospheric pressure decreases during ascent, the gases inside your body expand. In fact, the gas in your intestines can expand by about 25% to 30% when you reach cruising altitude. For older travelers, whose digestive systems might already be a bit more sensitive, this can lead to intense bloating, abdominal pain, and even shortness of breath as that expanded gas pushes up against your diaphragm. To combat this, you need to be very intentional about what you eat 24 hours before you fly. This isn't the time for a big farewell dinner featuring beans, broccoli, cabbage, or heavy fried foods. Carbonated drinks are your absolute enemy here. Swallowing bubbles on the ground means those bubbles will grow significantly larger once you're in the air. Stick to lean proteins and simple carbohydrates the day before your flight. Also, avoid chewing gum during the flight. It causes you to swallow excess air, which only adds to the pressure building up in your gut. If you frequently experience this airplane bloat, consider taking an over-the-counter anti-gas medication before you board. It's a small step that can prevent hours of silent, cramped discomfort. This physical discomfort often leads to another overlooked issue: the psychological toll of the modern gate environment. Have you noticed how much louder and more chaotic airports have become? The constant announcements, the blaring TVs, and the sheer density of people can lead to something called sensory overload, which triggers a cortisol spike. For seniors, this can cause a rise in blood pressure and a feeling of disorientation. The secret weapon here is a high-quality pair of noise-canceling headphones. Even if you aren't listening to music, just turning on the noise-canceling feature can create a bubble of calm around you. It filters out the high-frequency roar of the engines and the low-frequency drone of the terminal. By protecting your ears, you are actually protecting your nervous system from unnecessary stress. It's not just a luxury, it's a tool for maintaining your physical health during travel. Another vital tip regarding your surroundings: be strategic about your seat selection. While many people aim for the very front of the plane to get off faster, if you're over 60, you might want to look at the exit row with a bit of caution. Yes, there is more legroom, but those seats come with a heavy responsibility. Federal law requires that you be physically able to lift a 50 to 60-pound emergency door and assist others in a crisis. If you have any back issues or limited mobility, the exit row isn't a perk, it's a liability. Instead, look for Economy Plus or Main Cabin Extra seats. They give you the extra legroom you need for circulation without the physical burden or the requirement to perform manual labor in an emergency. Fourth, we need to talk about the temperature trap. Airline cabins are notoriously unpredictable. It's either a sauna or an icebox. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at thermoregulation, meaning we feel these shifts much more acutely. Hyperthermia, or even mild hypothermia, can happen surprisingly easily on a long-haul flight. The solution is the 3-layer rule. Always wear a base layer made of a moisture-wicking fabric, like merino wool or a synthetic blend. Avoid 100% cotton as it holds on to sweat. A comfortable middle layer, like a cardigan or a light fleece. And carry a large, lightweight scarf or pashmina. That scarf is the most versatile tool in your travel kit. It can be a blanket, a lumbar support pillow, or even a shield against a direct blast of cold air from the overhead vent. Speaking of those vents, here is a pro tip that sounds counterintuitive. Keep your air vent open. Many people turn it off because they don't want the cold air or they're afraid it's blowing germs on them. Actually, it's the opposite. The air coming out of that vent is HEPA filtered and incredibly clean. By keeping it on a low flow directed right in front of your face, you are creating an air curtain that can actually help blow away unfiltered air from the person coughing in the seat next to you. It's one of the simplest ways to avoid coming home with a travel bug that ruins your first week back. As we look toward the final part of our journey, we're going to dive into the secrets of managing your internal clock and why the standard advice for jet lag is often dangerously wrong for travelers over 60. We'll also talk about the one document you must have in your pocket that could literally save your life if an emergency happens while you're over the Atlantic. Stay with me, because what's coming up next is the difference between a trip you'll remember forever and one you'd rather forget. Now let's talk about that one document I mentioned earlier, because this is where a lot of people over 60 get caught off guard. When you're traveling domestically, your health insurance usually follows you. But the second you cross an international border, you are essentially on your own. Many people assume their standard Medicare plan covers them abroad, but in the vast majority of cases, it does not. If you have a medical emergency in a foreign country, you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs just to get stabilized, let alone flown home. This brings me to the fifth essential rule. You must carry a medical quick reference sheet and a copy of a secondary travel insurance policy. This isn't just a digital file on your phone. Phones die, and passcodes can be forgotten in a crisis. This should be a physical, laminated piece of paper in your pocket or your personal item bag. It needs to list your blood type, every single medication you take, including the dosage, any allergies you have, and a clear list of pre-existing conditions like heart disease or diabetes. More importantly, it should have the contact information for your primary care doctor and your emergency contact back home. If a flight attendant or a foreign medic finds you unresponsive, this piece of paper becomes your voice. It ensures you get the right treatment immediately and prevents dangerous drug interactions. Beyond the paperwork, we have to address the internal clock issue. We've all dealt with jet lag, but for the over 60 crowd, the standard advice of just power through it can be physically taxing on your heart and your immune system. Your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells you when to sleep and eat, actually becomes less flexible as you age. It takes longer for your body to adjust to a new time zone, and the sleep debt you rack up can linger for weeks. Instead of trying to power through, you need to start shifting your clock 3 days before you leave. If you're flying east, go to bed an hour earlier each night. If you're flying west, stay up an hour later. This gradual shift is much easier on your nervous system than trying to force a 6-hour jump all at once. And once you land, don't rush into a full day of sightseeing. Plan a buffer day. Use that first day to walk around in the sunlight. Natural light is the most powerful tool for resetting your internal clock, but keep the activity level low. Allow your body to catch up so you can actually enjoy the rest of your trip instead of viewing it through a haze of exhaustion. I also want to touch on a hidden risk that nobody warns you about: the post-flight immune dip. The stress of travel, the lack of sleep, and the exposure to thousands of different people in a confined space naturally suppresses your immune system. For seniors, this dip is more pronounced. This is why so many people get sick about 3 days after they arrive at their destination. To fight this, start a high-quality probiotic regimen 2 weeks before your flight. About 70% of your immune system is in your gut, and keeping your microbiome strong is your best defense against those airplane bugs. Sixth, let's talk about your exit strategy. The flight is over, you've landed, and the fasten seatbelt sign turns off. What do most people do? They jump up immediately and start wrestling with heavy bags in the overhead bins. If you're over 60, this is the most common time for a back tweak or a fall. Your muscles are stiff from sitting, your balance might be slightly off due to the pressure changes in your inner ear, and everyone around you is rushing and shoving. Sit down. Just stay in your seat for an extra 5 minutes. Let the sprinters rush off the plane. Taking those 5 minutes allows your blood pressure to stabilize and gives you the space to move carefully. If you need help getting your bag down, ask a flight attendant or a younger passenger. People are generally happy to help, but they won't offer if you're already struggling. Protect your back and your dignity by simply waiting for the chaos to subside. Before we wrap this up, I want to emphasize that none of this is meant to scare you away from traveling. In fact, it's the opposite. The world is too big and too beautiful to stop exploring just because we've hit a certain age. By knowing these unspoken rules, by managing your hydration, protecting your circulation, and being smart about your medications and your physical limits, you aren't just surviving the flight. You're ensuring that you arrive at your destination with the energy to actually enjoy it. If you found this 3-part guide valuable, please share it with a friend or a family member who has a trip coming up. Information is the best gift you can give a fellow traveler. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when we drop new, honest advice for the modern traveler. I'd love to hear your pro tips too. What's one thing you always do to make flying easier as you've gotten older? Leave a comment below and let's keep this conversation going. Safe travels, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.